Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Cricket on Forever Sports. And South Africa have lost the first test against Pakistan by 7 wickets after a complete collapse following a very, very valiant effort by Aiden Markram and Rassie van der Dussen on day 3. Day 4 saw a complete collapse. The tail didn't wag before Pakistan then went and chased down the 87 target that was set by South Africa after they finished 245, losing just 3 wickets in the process. So back to the drawing board for South Africa. Well, now what I will say is that South Africa were not expected to win this test. Yes, Pakistan were dismantled against New Zealand, who are currently the number 1 test side in the world. But at this ground, Pakistan have only lost twice in their entire history. So South Africa were not supposed to win this test. But what I will say is that I think South Africa could have won this test. And I think that's the frustration, is that we are looking at a side where there are glimmers of hope. And we can see there are certain aspects of the test side which are very positive and very good. But we are not stringing together a complete performance. We are not stringing together 2 consecutive innings which are up to standard. And then equally the bowling, whilst they've historically carried us in the last couple of years, also I think has to take a bit of blame for this, because if you look at that Pakistan first innings, they should have been out for about 70 to 80 runs less if we hadn't just let the tail go and wag it a little bit and add, sort of 60 to 70 runs needlessly. And it's a big swing, because in the first innings, if you could put on another 30, 40 runs and finish on 250 plus, maybe 260, and equally then bowl Pakistan out for around 300, like we probably should have, you're looking at about a 120 run swing. And suddenly, Pakistan would have had to make over 200 in the second innings. And that's a whole different game. Approaching 87 and approaching 200 is a massive mental shift. So I think what we've got to look at is, why is the batting crumbling? Why is it that across the innings we are not seeing consistent partnerships? Because if you look at the first innings, we had a reasonable first wicket partnership, and then we just lost wickets in intervals. And I think you look at that first innings, bar Dean Elgar, no other batsman. George chipped in with a little bit. No other batsman took enough responsibility. And I said that there wasn't enough test innings being played. Strike rates all above 50, with the exception of Temba Bavuma. And to be fair, Bavuma, the way he played in the first innings, didn't get enough runs and was stupidly run out. But the way he went about it was the correct approach. And that's the approach that we saw in our second innings between Aiden Markram and Rassie van der Dussen. And this is what I said last night, that yesterday's innings by Aiden Markram was the best one I've seen him play, because he took his time, he got himself in, and he earned the right to play shots. And we didn't do enough of that in the second innings. We did play a little bit better, a little less aggressively, and try to take the game deep. But I mean, after that sort of shuffle towards the end, it all fell apart. I mean, Keshav Maharaj got bowled on the first delivery of the day today. Quinton de Kock out for 2 runs. It's not good enough. George Lindy contributing with 11. I don't think Lindy's done enough to justify his place in the next test. And I think if Shamsi is fit, you've got to look at maybe dropping Gidi, bringing in Mulder for that seam option, and playing Shamsi. Because for me, I just didn't think that George Lindy looked like he was going to get any wickets. And I think Linda's a very good player. And I think that he's got a role to play, especially in limited overs. But my problem is that he's contributing more with the bat than he is with the ball, and we needed spin to come off today. I mean, in this test. Pakistan spinners took 14 wickets. Nouman Ali took a 5 in the second innings, and Yasir Shah got 4. 9 of the last 10 wickets in the South African innings were taken by spin. I think it was just about 2 or 3 wickets across the entire test, which actually wasn't taken by spin. It was 1 wicket in the second innings, and just 3 wickets in the first innings. So 4 wickets across the South African innings were from seam. So look, it speaks to 2 things. First of all, South Africa can't play spin, but we know South Africa can't play spin, and it really grinds me that we continue to be so poor against spin. And that's where, you look at spinning camps and the fact that we used to spend bowlers over to India to learn how to play spin. We need to look at how we can try and get our batsmen to learn how to play spin. Does that mean our batsmen from a younger age need to do spells in an India, in a Pakistan, in a Sri Lanka, playing first-class cricket in these countries and adapting to the conditions? Because it is not enough to just be able to bat in South Africa, to just be able to bat in England. If we want to become a good test side and a good test nation, we need to be able to play in all conditions. You need to be able to play in the subcontinent. And at the moment, we do not have batsmen who can play spin well enough to carry us in the subcontinent, which is a massive problem. But if you look at the second innings and you look at the scores for South Africa, you've got Temba Bavuma, who played a very gutsy 40 off 93. And again, he took the right approach. A strike rate of 43, so he wasn't going on and batting with the tail, and was really unlucky that he couldn't convert. But it was the better approach. I mean, Quinton de Kock owes South Africa some serious runs. And what I'm saying is, looking at this test, he is not a number 5 batsman. For the last sort of year and a half, a lot of people have been saying he's our best batsman. He needs to be batting 4. We need to move him up the order. I disagree. I continue to disagree. Quinton de Kock is a stroke player. He's an aggressive batsman, which isn't in the mold for Test cricket in the top order. When he bats 7 and he's batting with the tail, he's got license to be aggressive. He's got a license to go out and try and play the shots and be more aggressive about it. He's allowed to do that because that's the situation that it demands. But Quinton de Kock needed to come in and stick around for 100 deliveries and make 20 to 30, 40 off them, and he couldn't do that. And in the first innings, he threw his wicket away. So the first thing we need to do is move Quinton back down to 7, where he can play that aggressive, finishing off an innings role, not having to walk in after top order collapse and have to stabilize. Because I just don't think he's the type of batsman that can do that. For all that Tim Avuma's not scoring runs, and I think if we were to drop someone, he's probably the first one that would come up. He's got the sort of attributes that you need in that sort of middle order to be able to take a pressure situation and grind it out. And I think the problem is that we're not going to see any changes to the side, which really frustrates me when you think that we've got somebody like Keegan Peterson, we've got Reina Pantonda, and we've got Calvin in the squad, and they're just not getting a chance. And I can understand why they're not getting a chance, because the problem is our batsmen are all equally inconsistent. They are all equally not scoring runs and then scoring one or a decent innings. You can look back at this test and the Sri Lanka series, and across the 3 tests, the entire order has made runs except for Quinton de Kock. Faf du Plessis has made a 199. Aidan Markram has hit 250s. Dean Elgar has hit 350s, I think. Rassie van der Dussen has hit 64 now. Faf du Plessis and Tim Avuma also hit a 50 in the Sri Lanka series, and he made 40 here. So the problem is, who do you drop? But I do think we need to make changes. And I think if Shamsi's... Look, the problem is now we're moving to a ground which isn't as spin-friendly, so we kind of missed the boat. But this raises a lot of questions. Does Linda play? Surely we have to try and get Mulder in to try and deepen this batting. And that's the problem, Do we keep Lungi Ngidi, or do we go in the subcontinent with Ben Mulder, who can bat? And do we say, right, we're going to add with a batting option and hope that he can do enough with the ball? Against Sri Lanka, he was very good. But can he adapt to the conditions? So there's lots and lots of questions. And I would really like to see one of Calvin, Keegan Peterson, or Reina Pantonda given the chance in the next test. I just don't think we have it, because the problem is, do you drop Tim Avuma and play Sal Irby maybe, and drop Aidan Markram down the order? Having said that, Aidan Markram has just demonstrated that he can open the batting. In which case, do you drop Tim Avuma and play Calvin at 5? Or do you maybe play Keegan Peterson or Reina Pantonda at 3 and shift everybody else up? Maybe put Rassie van der Dussen at 5. Because I do think that we need to try and tweak the side slightly, and I'd really like to see one of those 3 youngsters given a chance in the next test. And the problem is, what would be really nice is if Aidan Markram can develop his spin enough to be able to do a job, not necessarily in a condition which suits spinners, but in matches where we can try and get away with playing Mulder as an all-rounder as well as an extra batsman, because unfortunately our batting just isn't good enough at the moment. We used to have De Kock coming in at 7, Philander at 8, and then you had a tail of Maharaj at 9, Roberto at 10, and then Nokia or Ngidi at 11. That's a much better batting line. When you've got Maharaj coming at 9, I'm thinking that's a fairly settled lineup. When you've got Maharaj coming in at 8 and Linda, it's just the tail's too long. We really do miss Philander, and that's where Mulder's going to hopefully try and fill the gap. So it's very interesting in terms of what we're going to have to do in the next match, because we can't, if we are going to try and level the series, we need to try and tweak something. And I'd like to see a bit of change, because I also think we need to start bringing in youngsters. And as much as I think that Faf du Plessis has got a huge role to play, I do think it's time, not because he's not good enough and not because we don't need him, to start bringing him back slightly from the test format and letting him focus on the limited over format, where he has been so good for South Africa. I mean, he's historically one of our best limited over players of all time, if you look at stats-wise. And I think that's probably a position where Faf du Plessis won't be around. I mean, he's 36 years old. So, who's going to bat 4? Is Markram going to bat 4? We're going to bring in a specialist batsman for 4. We've also got to look at Tim Avuma and Rassie van der Dussen. Long term, are there going to be options? Age-wise, I've never got an issue. Not got an issue with a 31-year-old player being back, because they can still play for another 3, 4, 5 years. But you've got to make the decision. If they're not scoring enough runs, are we going to persist with them, or are we going to sort of cut their chances short and give somebody else a go. Let me know what you think in the comments below. It's a very disappointing game. I think the bowling lineup needs to take a bit of accountability, but not as much as the batting. The batting has to improve in the second test before the T20 series, which will be a completely different squad. But let me know what you thought of the game down below in the comments. Smash like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. My name is Steven, and I'll chat to you soon.